You're standing on the first tee. You take the club back the way you always have. You swing hard, sure that this one will be different. And you watch that little white ball start out straight, then peel off to the right like it's running away from you, into the trees, into somebody else's fairway, gone. I did that for almost 30 years. Same slice, same sigh. Same walk of shame back to the cart. Here's what nobody told me until I was almost 60. Your slice is not your swing, it's your club face. And the men who taught me that were not on a driving range in America. They were old, quiet, and Japanese. And they fixed my ball flight in one afternoon without changing a single thing about how hard I swung. I learned it in a place called Hyogo, near the hills above Kobe, where I watched a man in his 70s hit 50 balls dead straight and never once looked like he was trying. And by the end of this, I'll hand you the exact swing drill he showed me. A drill that goes back to Japan's oldest golf ground from 1903 and even further back than that to the Way of the Sword. You can do it in your garage tonight. No range fee, no new driver, nothing you don't already own. Let me tell you how a skeptical old man got proven wrong. I want to be honest with you about the kind of golfer I was. I was the guy who bought the fix. Every spring, there was a new driver that promised to end my slice forever. I believed it every single time. I'd spend $500, sometimes $600, take it to the course, and slice it into the same trees, only now with a more expensive club. So when a friend I'd made in Japan told me my whole problem was something I'd never once thought about, I laughed at him. I told him I'd taken lessons. I'd been told to fix my grip, fix my hips, fix my shoulder turn, keep my head down, 100 different things. He just shook his head and said, in careful English, "You are fixing the swing. You should fix the door." The door. I had no idea what he meant. But he took me to a range the next morning, and what I saw there changed how I understood the game completely. There was research waiting for me when I got home too, and it backed up every word that old man said. Modern launch monitors, the kind they use to measure a golf ball the instant it leaves the club, have proven something that would have saved me 30 years of misery. When you hit a driver, the direction your club face is pointing at impact controls about 85% of where that ball starts. Not your swing path, not your hips. The face. Think about that number, 85%. For decades, I'd been trying to fix the 15% and completely ignoring the 85%. I was pouring all my effort, all my money, into the smallest part of the problem. A slice happens for one simple reason. At the moment the club meets the ball, the face is pointing open to the right for a right-handed player, relative to the way the club is traveling. That open face puts a sideways spin on the ball, and that spin is what makes it curve away from you into the trees. It doesn't matter how pretty your swing looks. If that face is open at the strike, the ball will slice every time. And here's the part that stung. Closing that face just a few degrees, a tiny amount you can barely see with your eye, turns a 40-yard slice into a ball that flies almost dead straight. It's that sensitive, it's that small, and nobody had ever shown me how to control it. So the question became obvious. If the face is everything, why had every lesson I ever paid for started somewhere else? Why was I taught to move my whole body before I was ever taught to control the one thing that mattered most? I found the answer, and it made me angry. Once I understood the club face was the real problem, I started paying attention to how the game gets sold to people like you and me. And I want you to sit with this, because it cost me thousands of dollars over the years. There is an entire industry built on the idea that your slice is a hardware problem, that you need a new club to fix it. Every year, there's a driver marketed as anti-slice or draw biased. They put weights in the heel. They advertise forgiveness. And the message underneath all of it is the same. You cannot fix this yourself. You have to keep buying. I fell for it for almost 3 decades. If I'd bought a new driver every couple of years, and I did, I spent well over $5,000 chasing a cure that a free adjustment to my hands could have delivered in an afternoon. Add in the lessons that focused on everything except the face, the training aids, the range balls, and I don't even want to add it all up. And here's the quiet trick of it. A new anti-slice driver might straighten your ball a little for a while, just enough that you believe the club did it, but it never teaches you anything. So the slice creeps back because the real cause, your open face, was never addressed. And what do you do when it creeps back? You buy the next driver. It's a beautiful business. Dependence sold as a solution. The old man in Japan had none of that. His clubs were older than some of the people reading this. His driver had a small steel head, no fancy weights, nothing adjustable, and he hit it straighter than any club I've ever owned. Because he'd learned to control the face with his hands, and once you learn that, you never need to buy the cure again. You own it. That's the difference I want you to feel. One path keeps you paying forever. The other path costs you nothing and lasts the rest of your life. The Japanese golf teachers I met were firmly on the second path, and it wasn't an accident. It came from the very way golf arrived in their country. Golf did not grow up in Japan the way it did in Scotland or America. It arrived as something rare and precious. The first real golf course in Japan was built on a mountain above Kobe, opened in 1903 by an Englishman named Arthur Groom, who fell in love with the hills there. For years there was almost nowhere to play. Land was scarce, courses were few, so the Japanese did something we never had to do. They learned to practice without a course. They built tall, netted driving ranges, stacked 2 and 3 stories high in the middle of cities, and they developed a culture of hitting thousands of balls with obsessive attention to detail. When you cannot play 18 holes easily, you stop worrying about your score and you start worrying about your craft. And the craft, they decided, begins and ends with the face of the club. This is where it connects to something much older than golf. When that old man told me to think about the club face as a door, he was pointing at an idea buried deep in Japanese tradition, and it comes from the sword. In the Japanese sword arts, kendo and aikido, there is a concept called hasuji. It means the alignment of the blade's edge with the direction of the cut. A sword has a sharp edge and a flat side. If the blade is turned even slightly, if the edge is not perfectly aligned with the path of the swing, the cut fails. The blade slaps instead of slicing. To a swordsman, a swing with perfect power but poor hasuji is worthless. The edge alignment is everything. Do you see it? A golf club has a face and an edge, just like a blade. And the Japanese teachers took 1,000 years of thinking about blade alignment and quietly applied it to the golf club. They weren't teaching me to swing harder. They were teaching me hasuji. They were teaching me to keep the edge, the face, aligned with the target through the strike. Everything else, they said, is decoration. And it started before I even took the club back. It started with my hands. The old man looked at my grip and made a small, unhappy sound. My left hand, the top hand for a right-hander, was turned too far to the left, so I could only see one knuckle when I looked down. That grip, he showed me, guarantees an open face at impact. It's like holding a door and letting it swing open behind you. He rotated my top hand gently to the right until I could see 2, almost 3 knuckles looking down. Then he adjusted my bottom hand so the V made by my thumb and finger pointed back toward my right shoulder. He pressed my hands together so they worked as one unit, not 2 hands fighting each other. And the pressure, he said, softer than you think. A gentle, firm hold, like holding a small bird. Squeeze too hard and the wrists lock, and locked wrists cannot square a face. That was it. He didn't touch my hips. He didn't touch my shoulders. He handed the club back and pointed at the ball. My first swing with that new grip, the ball started slightly left and drew gently back to the center. I stood there like I'd seen a ghost. 30 years. One grip change. I actually laughed out loud on that range, and the old man just nodded like he'd watched 100 foreigners have the exact same moment. But a grip change on the range is one thing. I could feel it slipping already. my hands wanting to creep back to the old, comfortable, slicing position. And that's when I learned the real secret, the thing that separates the Japanese approach from everything I'd been taught back home. It isn't the grip itself, it's how they burn the grip into your body so it never leaves. And that method costs nothing and needs no golf course at all. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's fine for a fellow who flew to Japan and stood on a range with an old master. I've got a busy life, a bad back, and the nearest range is a 30-minute drive with a bucket of balls that costs more every year. This will never work for me. I promise you, this next part was built for exactly your life. For your garage, your backyard, even a hallway with a decent ceiling. Because the single most powerful training method I learned in Japan does not use a golf ball at all. If any of this is landing for you, the idea that the real fix was always in your hands, not in your wallet. I've gone much deeper into this world in my books, Japan Simple, Deep Japanese, and The Full System, where I lay out the full Japanese approach to mastering practical skills with nothing but attention and repetition. You'll find them linked in the description below, and if you've already felt the cost of chasing the wrong cure for too long, I think you'll recognize yourself on every page. But back to the driving range and the lesson that kept selling me the wrong answer for 30 years. They call it suburi. It's an old word, and it doesn't come from golf. It comes again from the sword arts and from Japanese baseball training. Suburi simply means practicing the swing itself over and over, with no target and nothing to hit. Just the motion, repeated with total attention until your body knows it in the dark. The old man told me something I've never forgotten. He said, "The ball is a liar." When you hit a ball, he explained, you get so caught up in where it went that you stop feeling what your hands actually did. Good shot, you feel proud. Bad shot, you feel angry. But you learn nothing because your attention is on the flight, not on the face. Take the ball away, and suddenly all you have left to feel is the club face. And feeling the face is the entire game. So here is what I want you to do this week, and you can start tonight. Take any club, a mid-iron is perfect, into a space where you won't hit anything. Grip it the correct way, top hand showing 2 knuckles, hands together, soft pressure like holding that little bird. Now swing it slowly, not hard, slow enough that you can feel every inch of the motion. And you're going to add one checkpoint that changes everything. Swing back until the club is about waist high, parallel to the ground, and stop. Look at the face. The toe of the club, the far end, should be pointing straight up at the ceiling. Straight up. If the toe is pointing behind you, or the face is looking down at the floor, your face is open, and that is your slice, frozen in place where you can finally see it. Do the same on the way through. Swing to waist high on the other side and stop. Toe up again. 2 checkpoints, both showing the face square. 20 or 30 slow swings a night. That's it. No ball, no range, no noise. I did this in a hotel room in Japan, and then in my garage every night when I got home, 10 minutes while the coffee brewed in the morning. Within about 2 weeks, my hands simply stopped drifting back to the old grip. The correct face position stopped being something I had to think about and became something my body just did. That is what thousands of repetitions with full attention buy you. And it's the same principle a Japanese swordsman has used for centuries. You don't rise to the level of your hopes on the course. You fall to the level of your training in the garage. And the beauty of it, the part that still makes me smile, is the cost. 0. A bucket of range balls near me now runs about $18. A single lesson, $60 to $100. Suburi in your garage costs nothing, forever, and it works better than any of it because it isolates the one thing that matters, the face. But there was one more piece. One final checkpoint the old man showed me on my last afternoon there, and it's the thing I'd never seen in any book, any video, or any lesson back home. It's the piece that ties the whole method together, and once you have it, you will never be lost with your club face again. Let me tell you how I found it. On my last day in Hyogo, the old man could see I understood the grip and the waist-high checkpoints. But he said there was one more place I had to learn to read the face, and it was the most important one of all. Not at waist height, at the very top of the backswing, the moment just before everything comes down. He explained that this teaching had a name and a lineage. It came out of the old Japanese range culture, the three-story cages in the cities after the war, when instructors who had grown up in the sword and archery traditions taught golf to a hungry new generation. They didn't have the launch monitors we have now. They had their eyes and their hands, and they developed simple, physical checkpoints to read the invisible face. This one, the top of swing check, was the crown of it, and it had nearly disappeared because it can't be sold. There's no product for it. It only survived because old men kept teaching it to anyone who would stand still and listen. Here is the check, and I want you to try it tonight, right after your waist-high swings. Take the club to the top of your backswing, slowly, and stop. Freeze there. Now, without moving your hands, look up at your lead wrist, the left wrist for a right-hander. The old man had me feel it more than see it. If the back of that lead wrist is cupped, bent backward toward your forearm like you're carrying a tray, the club face at the top is wide open, and it will stay open all the way down into a slice. But if the back of that lead wrist is flat, in a straight line with your forearm, or even slightly bowed forward, the face is square or closed, and the ball has no choice but to fly straight or draw. Cupped wrist, open face, slice. Flat wrist, square face, straight ball. That's the whole secret, held right there in the angle of one wrist at the top of your swing. He had me do it in slow motion, over and over. Cup the wrist and feel the face fall open. Flatten it and feel the face come square. Back and forth until my hand could tell the difference with my eyes closed. Then he had me combine all three checkpoints into one slow suburi swing. Waist high going back, toe up, top of the swing, flat lead wrist, waist high coming through, toe up again. Three little gates the club face has to pass through, and if it passes through all three square, a slice is physically impossible. I want to be clear about how old and how real this is. This is not a gimmick somebody dreamed up last year. This is the golf that grew out of a country where the first course opened in 1903, where land was too precious to waste, where they practiced in stacked city cages with the discipline of a martial art, and where the whole approach was shaped by a 1,000-year-old idea about keeping a blade's edge aligned with its path. The men who taught it to me were the last of a generation that learned it by hand from other men who learned it by hand. And it was slipping away, not because it stopped working, but because you can't put it in a box and sell it to you every spring. When I got home, I tested it against everything I owned. My old slicing driver, the one I'd blamed for years. I stood on the range, ran through my three gates in a couple of slow practice swings, and then stepped up and hit it. The ball started at the flag and drew gently home. Same club, same body, same 58-year-old back. The only thing that had changed was that I finally understood the face, and I had a physical way to check it that needed no machine and no expert standing over me. I've since watched friends my age do this in a single evening in their garage and walk onto the course a week later, hitting the straightest balls of their lives. One fellow, a retired teacher, had been ready to quit the game entirely after 40 years of slicing. He learned the three gates, did his suburi for 10 days, and called me from the course nearly shouting, because for the first time in his life he'd driven the ball down the middle of every fairway on the front nine. He didn't buy anything. He just learned what should have been taught to all of us on day one. That's what I want for you. Not a new driver, not another lesson that fixes everything but the face, just this. The grip that shows two knuckles, the soft pressure like holding a bird, the waist-high toe-up check going back and coming through, and the crown of it all, the flat lead wrist at the top, the one the old teachers in Kobe kept alive when everyone else had forgotten it. Do your suburi tonight. 20 slow swings, 3 gates, no ball. Do it while the coffee brews. Do it in front of the television. And in 2 weeks, walk to the tee and watch that ball you thought would slice forever start out at the target and hold its line. It's one of the best feelings I know, and it was there for the taking the whole time. Here's what I keep coming back to, sitting in my own garage all these years later. Nobody stole my golf swing from me. What they stole was 30 years of straight drives, one expensive spring at a time, by convincing me the answer was a thing I had to buy instead of a skill I already owned the tools to build. If you've ever felt that quiet suspicion that the real answer to a problem is simpler and cheaper than everyone selling you a cure wants you to believe, then you and I are the same kind of person. We'd rather own a skill than rent a solution. We'd rather learn something with our own 2 hands and pass it to our kids than hand our money over every year for the same disappointment in a shinier box. So let me ask you something, and I really do want you to answer. When you look down at your grip just now, how many knuckles could you see on your top hand? 1, and you're a slicer like I was? Or 2, like the old man taught me? Tell me in the comments. And tell me if you've ever bought an anti-slice driver that let you down. Because I know I'm not the only one, and I want the folks reading this to see they're in good company. And if you want more of this, the real, practical, quietly forgotten Japanese ways of doing things with your own hands instead of your wallet, come along with us and subscribe. This channel exists for people who are done being sold dependents and want to recover the lost knowledge that actually lasts. Next time, I'm going to show you the Japanese way of caring for your steel that keeps a good blade or a good club rust-free for decades with something you already have under your kitchen sink. The men in Hyogo showed me that one too, and I only wish they'd shown me 40 years sooner. Go do your suburi. Watch that ball fly straight. And remember, you didn't need the cure they kept selling you. You just needed the door to swing shut at the right moment. Now it will. Before you go, let me tell you where this leads. Inside the quiet wisdom circle, I walk you through the full Clubface drill, step by step, so you can groove it tonight. And you can ask me your own question there and I answer you myself. Not some machine. Folks like you already belong here. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen, and you can cancel anytime. Come join me.